Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
Another successful Guilty by Association truck show is in the books. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford caught up with Bryan Martin to recap how this past weekend's show went. As drivers, we tend to focus on making sure we have good tires, especially on the steer position. Most of us don't mind paying more for a good tire, but it's a large purchase, and you want to make sure that you get a return on that investment. Andy McCulloch of Michelin calls in with some advice. And finally, the FMCSA has announced that it intends to require speed limiters set at 68 miles per hour, despite comments from thousands of truckers. I'll get some insight into what's happening from OOIDA Public Relations Director Narita Taylor. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. We begin with breaking news out of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration tonight. New details about the agency's plans when it comes to a speed limiter mandate for heavy trucks. In the DOT's September Significant Rulemaking Report released on Monday, FMCSA said it intends to proceed with a supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking at the end of this year that would set the maximum speed for a commercial truck at 68 miles an hour. The latest development comes after months of waiting and a comment period that yielded more than 15,000 comments, many coming from truck drivers opposed to a mandate. The 68-mile-per-hour proposal is faster than truck safety groups had lobbied for. They wanted the top speed set at 60 miles an hour. But despite FMCSA settling on a higher speed, opponents will still take issue with the idea. OOIDA, for one, argues that roads are safer when all vehicles are traveling at the same speed. The OOIDA Foundation points to research from Dr. Stephen Johnson and the University of Arkansas that says the frequency of interactions with other vehicles increases 227% when traveling 10 miles an hour below the speed of traffic. There are also concerns of placing another mandate on drivers and questions about whether such a mandate is overreaching. It's also being touted as a states' rights issue. One more item in the DOT report. They estimate a final rule on a proposed mandate for automatic emergency braking systems in heavy trucks to come on April 30th of this coming year. We'll have much more on this late-breaking news throughout the week right here on Landline Now. On now to California, where the governor has vetoed a bill that would have banned self-driving trucks without a human inside. Governor Gavin Newsom, in a news release, said Assembly Bill 316 was unnecessary since existing law provides enough protections and oversight. The governor added that the California Department of Motor Vehicles already has the authority to regulate the testing and deployment of autonomous vehicles on public roads. The bill made it through California's legislature with wide support, with sponsors warning of the safety implications of full self-driving trucks on California roadways. We're seeing those concerns play out on a smaller scale in San Francisco, where autonomous robo-taxis continue to be a hot topic. Car companies Waymo and Cruise have been given the green light to operate the autonomous vehicles in the Bay Area, despite objections about how they are disrupting emergency response services and creating traffic problems. But Cruise's CEO Kyle Vogt doubled down on his company's commitment to its business plan and technology last week at the TechCrunch Disrupt conference in San Francisco.
That said, we get it. Like in the early days of AV, sometimes they do things differently than a human or that look a little awkward. And I think that gets a lot of attention. I understand that. I think it is newsworthy in many ways. And it's kind of fun as a society to poke at the differences between AVs and humans. But if we're serious about safety in our cities, we should be rolling out the red carpet for AVs. There's really no way to look at it if safety is the top priority.
The conversation at the conference was moderated by Kirsten Korosek, TechCrunch's transportation editor, who went on to ask Vogt specifically about some of the high-profile problems Cruise vehicles have caused in recent months, including one Cruise vehicle that got stuck in wet cement and another that contributed to a deadly crash. She wanted to know what the company is doing to reduce the frequency of such incidents.
One thing to realize is that, Cruise out there, we have more vehicles on the road. Actually, just last night, we crossed 5 million driverless miles, so that's some news for us. And so because we're out there having the most miles, the most vehicles, you're going to see these rare events that do happen, at some frequency with Cruise first. And so I see this as the beginning of a conversation with regulators, with city officials on the reality that these vehicles are here. They have a positive impact on the society, but we cannot expect perfection.
San Francisco isn't alone when it comes to cruise robotaxis causing problems. In Austin, Texas on Saturday night, at least 20 cruise vehicles were blamed for causing a traffic jam near the University of Texas campus. Cruise expanded its robotaxi services in Austin earlier this summer. KXAN reports that the city council is set to discuss some of those problems that have popped up in recent months next month. A government shutdown is possible at the end of this week. Unless Congress comes up with a plan to fund the government before the September 30th deadline, work at federal agencies will come to a halt. That includes the Department of Transportation. The DOT released its plan for a shutdown over the weekend. Nearly 28,000 DOT employees would continue working as their jobs are deemed necessary to protect life and property, but many others would be furloughed. Air traffic controllers would stay on the job but work mostly without getting paid. Not affected, employees within the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. That's because they are paid out of the Highway Trust Fund and other sources that do not depend on annual government funding. Cargo theft spiked in the second quarter of this year. That's according to CargoNet, which said 582 cargo thefts were reported across the United States and Canada in the 3 months between April and July. That's an increase of 57% compared to the same period last year. CargoNet attributed the spike mostly to ongoing shipment misdirection schemes in which criminals use stolen motor carrier and logistics broker identities to obtain freight. They then misdirect it from the intended receiver so they can steal it. Keith Lewis of CargoNet told us this summer how big a problem this is becoming.
It seems to be a new trend that's been going on for a while, but it's just kind of come to light in the last, say, 6 months for those of us that are in this side of the business, that misdirected loads, it's very easy now. The bad guys have figured out that if I can misdirect loads, and it's a different type of fraud. So it's a new type of fraud that we're seeing from the old identity theft of a carrier. Not stealing the identity. I can get an innocent surrogate, whether I'm here or I'm in another country, to pick up a legitimate load. Is a good guy. That person doesn't know he's involved in the crime. I'm using this person. I take it to a third-party warehouse, and then I have my other bad guy truck pick it up there from the third-party warehouse. So we're seeing quite a bit of this misdirection.
The theft of a loaded conveyance like a full trailer also went up in the second quarter by 17%. California, Texas, Florida, and Illinois were the hotspots for those types of theft. North Carolina has declared a state of emergency and, by extension, has suspended certain regulations for commercial motor vehicles. The emergencies in response to the effects of Tropical Storm Ophelia. Under the order, hours of service, size, and weight and permit requirements are waived for vehicles being used to help with relief efforts. That includes fuel haulers and agricultural loads, among others. Exempt vehicles must provide documentation that shows their loads are being used for relief efforts. The emergency declaration is set to run through October 22nd. And finally, one of the best places to work in all the U.S. is a popular truck stop chain, according to a new survey. Indeed's Better Work Awards ranks companies in terms of workplace well-being based on feedback from employees who are asked to rank their employer in 4 categories: happiness, purpose, satisfaction, and stress. At the top of that list, Love's Travel Stops. It earned a score of 83 out of 100 in the survey, besting H&R Block by 4 points. Delta Airlines rounded out the top 3. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, Landline Now's Ashley Blackford catches up with Bryan Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia to recap this past weekend's Guilty by Association truck show. Andy McCulloch of Michelin calls in with some advice on steer tires and more. And I'll discuss the latest on speed limiters with OOIDA Public Relations Director Narita Taylor. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. More miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Landline Now, welcome back. The Guilty by Association Truck Show wrapped up yesterday. Bryan Martin with Chrome Shop Mafia joins me now. Bryan, how did things go?
Overall, it was an excellent show. At the same time, it was the most challenging and stressful GBATS we've had of the prior 13 shows. We had rain Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at some point during the day. So we were just as far as major events and outdoor festivities, we were in a constant change of direction due to the weather. But the turnout, the enthusiasm, the quantity, caliber of trucks, the money raised for Special Olympics, just everybody's general desire to be here and mix it up with other truckers was fabulous.
Have you ever had rain that much in years past?
Out of the previous 12 shows, we had only had 2 that had any rain. One was somewhat major, comparable to this year. Of course, the show was a lot smaller then. And then one year we just had some light showers a couple of days. But this year it was just like one fiery dart after the other as far as the weather.
And I was curious. I felt like everywhere I turned, one of your workers was there. How many people do you have working that event?
We have 180 staff members here at 4 State, and it takes every one of them and probably about 30 volunteers to help us pull the event off. Plus, your group sends a good amount of volunteers as well. We probably have 20 OIDA volunteers. Mm-hmm. So that's the folks behind the scenes that make everything roll.
And do you know how many trucks you had this year?
750.
750. Is that comparable to years past, or?
Kind of I would have to say 750 plus. Here's the situation. We registered 750, but we had to shut registration down about 45 minutes early because the wind and the rain was blowing our registration tin away. So we probably had 40 to 60 just self-parking trucks. You know, they got here right at closing time, and we just told them, hey, knock yourself out, find you a place to park, and join the party. So I would say 750 plus.
One thing I noticed, despite the rain, and really is a community event.
Yeah, the city of Joplin is very supportive. I mean, there's a lot of deep trucking industry roots in Joplin. I mean, trucking's still our number one industry to this day. So the locals really come out to support and see and enjoy the event. Yeah, and then, our truckers that enter their trucks in the show, they come from, we had people here from Maryland, that trucked here from Maryland to be in the show. So it's definitely, 48 states and Canada as far as the trucks that roll down here to spend the weekend.
Wow. How has the event evolved over the years? How have things changed since the first one you had?
Oh, it's massively different. Our first one back in 2009, I think, we had 38 trucks, and we could put them all pretty much in front of our store. 2021, we had nearly 800 trucks, and we scattered all over this exit, and Petro truck stops, Joplin 44 Petro joined our event, and we were able to kind of spill some trucks over into their parking lot. We did the same thing this year. It's just grown in everything from quantity of trucks to now we have a great fundraising thrust with Special Olympics. We did not have that in 2009. We were just kind of throwing a party for our customers to let them know we appreciated them. But about 8 years ago, when Special Olympics said, hey, would you host the world's largest convoy fundraiser at your event? We said, sure. That gave us a purpose. And it's just grown in trucks. It's grown in vendors. It's grown in sponsors, and certainly grown in attendees each and every year. It gets bigger.
And can you talk to me a little bit about the Special Olympics and the auction and how things went this year for that?
That was also very challenging because at one point during the weekend, due to the mandates by the city of Joplin, that we couldn't gather outdoors on Saturday night because of a weather forecast that showed strong possibility for severe weather. And of course, our convoy culminates downtown, with 500 trucks all coming together with probably 6,000 people coming out to see the concert. So that was a major curveball that really threatened the ability to have a convoy and even have a concert, and we have these major country artists already coming to Joplin. So we kind of went with a plan B, and on Saturday we had our auction, and we auctioned off the first 20 spots to lead the convoy. So we did that Saturday. We got all 20 of those trucks out, and we actually had a 20-truck convoy on Saturday at 6 o'clock as scheduled. And I think just that auction raised $81,000 for Special Olympics, just the auction of those 20 trucks. Then, because there were 300 other truckers that also donated $100 to be in a Special Olympics convoy, we moved that gathering to Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. And we all met yesterday at the Joplin Petro, and I led a convoy of 125 trucks down the interstate and back. And we had a great time on a beautiful Sunday morning. It was just a ton of fun. And Haley Blevins from Special Olympics was there. And it was really a great, fun, casual finale to the Guilty by Association truck show. A lot of camaraderie on the 125 truckers that were able to spend the night and come out and join that convoy. And we were able to do that on Sunday. So in some way, although it had to be modified, we still got to have our auction. We still got to raise considerable money, and we still got to have a convoy for the masses on Sunday.
I know there was a few things that had to be kind of changed or delayed, but do you feel like, truckers can kind of, no pun intended, but roll with the punches? And I know there was a lot of plan Bs put into place.
Absolutely. Like, we're planning to send a video out maybe by the end of the day, just addressed to our trucker participants. Largely, 98.5% of them rolled with the punches. They knew we were up against a lot of great odds weather-wise and getting things set up and prepared around weather, before weather, after weather. And they were all smiles, very supportive. I mean, I had hundreds of personal comments, just people slapping me on the back and saying, "Hey, man, we know you're stressing, but it's all right. This is a great gathering. Good job." A lot of support from our fans. As with any major undertaking this day, you're going to have a few naysayers in the crowd, and sometimes they resort to social media, and sometimes they don't have all the information, so their posts are not accurate. But you work around that, keep a positive attitude. And our customers that were in the show, awesome in understanding and support.
Mm-hmm. Now, this was the first year you did the Demolition Derby. Is that right?
It is the first year.
How did that go?
Incredible. Held the crowd. Everybody was, on the edge of their seat. The grandstands were about as full as we expected for a Thursday night. And the Derby guys put on a super show, and it was just hillbilly redneck trucker fun. We had as much fun watching it as everybody that was in the grandstands. It was great.
And the monster trucks, that was a really interesting event. I'd never seen that before. Have you done that in years past?
Well, it was supposed to be a truck and tractor pull. Mm-hmm. But because we had 5 inches of rain on Wednesday, and then we had another 1.5 inches on Thursday, we could not confidently prep the track for a truck and tractor pull by the 6:30 showtime. So even though we had several truck and tractors travel hundreds of miles and they were on site, we had to cancel the truck and tractor pull and then reset for a Monster Truck Mania full 2-hour event. And here again, the tractor guys, the pull guys were understanding, and the monster trucks rose to the occasion with about 3 hours notice, called in a 4th truck, and I think we had a great event Friday night with completely full grandstands and a certain amount of people in the standing room only cheap seats because the grandstands were full.
Wow. Now, when do you start planning for 2025?
It takes us about 4 months of hardcore prep to get ready. So that'll come at a date to be determined. But it's too early to re-aim on 2025. We're just trying to let the dust settle and put things back in order from 2023. But it's a tremendous amount of effort by all of our managers and even all of our staff, as all week long they're doing tasks that are so far from their job description that it's actually kind of comical. You know, they're used to driving a forklift or selling parts or driving a truck, you know, and they might be, you know, anything from tipping trash cans to running grandstand gate control to, you know, grilling hamburgers. I mean, it's crazy, the diversity and the things that our staff gets to participate in.
Did you imagine back when you started, I think you said it was in 2009, that in 2023 the event would look like it does today?
No, this is outside the scope of our wildest dreams. And we never thought it could go to the magnitude that it is today. It's really flattering to stand in the middle of it on Friday afternoon or anytime Saturday and just see the throng of people that have came to Joplin, to Four State Trucks, to enjoy the truck show.
And one thing I noticed, a lot of the trucks that park in front of the shop are trucks. I talked to a few of those drivers and trucks that you worked on. How nice is that to kind of look back and see all your hard work and your team's hard work?
Oh, it's fabulous. The area in front of the store is kind of like the boardwalk, you know, like the creme de la creme, you know. We try to always pick some really eye-catching, gorgeous trucks to put up there. Obviously, as you mentioned, a lot of them are longtime customers. With most of them, not all of them, but most of them, we've did a significant amount of work on their trucks, if not all of the work. But those people really feel, I think, honored to be storefront up on the primetime boardwalk, if you will. But it's fun to look across the front of the store and see all the really great equipment lined up there.
All right. Anything else? Anything I missed?
No, we really want to commend our participants for, you know, their understanding, flexibility, and rolling with the punches. I got to give a shout out to our staff, because with all the change, I mean, complete new setups, like a whole different set of directions. Our staff was just running on fumes Saturday, and they did it all with a smile and made it happen. And most of the attendees never even noticed all the changes behind the scenes. But want to give our staff a shout out, and then also OOIDA. It was really great to be able to celebrate their 50th birthday of all places here in Joplin at GBATS, and that was really quite an honor and a fun twist to put on the 2023 event.
All right. Yeah, it was certainly enjoyable. It was my first GBATS, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I got to talk to a lot of people and learn a lot.
One thing that we strived for from 2009 to current, we want to make it fun for everybody. We want to make it fun for the trucker. We want to make it fun for the trucker's wife, for his kids, his uncle, his granddad, his mechanic. There's stuff going on all the time, so that, you know, it's just like one action-packed event or happening after the other. So, you know, just like you came here with no truck and, you know, had a great time, that's our end game, our end goal for everybody that sets foot on the property.
That was Bryan Martin talking about this year's Guilty by Association Truck Show. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
For can't miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a CAT scale.
When you weigh on a CAT scale, you get a no excuses guarantee. You can now save time weighing by using your smartphone. Find out more at weightmytruck.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Welcome back to Landline Now. We're going to spend some time now thinking and talking about one of your biggest expenses, your tires. As drivers and owner-operators, it's only natural that we be focused on making sure we have good tires, especially on the steer position. Most of us don't mind paying a little more for a good, dependable tire, one that won't cause us unnecessary problems. But as I mentioned there a moment ago, it's a large purchase with a big price tag. Most of us don't mind paying a little more for a good, dependable tire, one that won't cause us unnecessary problems. But as I mentioned there just a moment ago, it's a large purchase with a big price tag, so you obviously want to make sure you're getting a solid return on that investment. Our next guest is going to have some sound advice that will undoubtedly help you. Andy McCulloch is Michelin's Senior CES Engineer for the West Coast, and he joins us on the phone now. Andy, good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me back, Scott. Always a pleasure to be here.
And let's start with a basic question that I expect might have a pretty simple answer. That question being, what is the best way to get the maximum tread life and the best ride out of our steer tires?
Well, as simple as it sounds, the key is really making sure that the round tire you just purchased stays round when it becomes part of a rotating assembly. After all, it's not just the tire rotating, remember. It's also the wheel, the hub, the brake drum or rotor, and the bearings. And believe it or not, one of the biggest causes of an out-of-round tire is actually a mismounted tire caused by bad mounting practices.
And you mentioned something there, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's important to emphasize this. When we think of tires, we think of them being round. we want everything to be round.
Right.
But it isn't really round, right? They're not really round already, are they?
Correct. I mean, they are in the general sense, but the answer to that is really yes and no. And that really comes down to having an understanding that the rotating components on your truck are as unique as a fingerprint, and they can vary from part to part because of the manufacturing process itself. Remember, it's almost impossible for them to be exactly the same and perfectly round in a mass production environment. Even though that might be the ideal goal, this out-of-round condition is actually referred to as runout, and it can be in the radial direction, causing the tire to move up and down, or it can be in the lateral direction, causing the tire to move side to side. So as I mentioned, it's difficult and expensive to make things perfectly round, and so engineers design parts to have tolerances or limits. And tolerances are usually based on the manufacturer's ability to produce precision components at a price that the market will support. So typically for truck tire assemblies, the tolerances for each component are 30 thousandths of an inch for aluminum wheels and 70 thousandths of an inch for steel, 20 thousandths of an inch for the hub. The mismount of the tire to the wheel should be no more than 63 thousandths of an inch. Bearings would be 0.005. Space between the hub and the wheel would be 24 thousandths, and the tire itself would be 22 thousandths. So you can see the tire has one of the tightest tolerances of the entire rotating assembly, and yet it's usually the first thing that gets blamed in this case.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you point that out, looking at tolerances. Which makes sense because, anything that is manufactured by humans is probably going to not be perfect necessarily. But when I hear you talking about that, you're talking all these numbers that you're throwing around right there. It doesn't sound like you're going to end up with a very round assembly in the end. Is that right?
Well, it seems that way on the surface. And actually, if you added all those numbers up, you would get 0.204 of an inch, which is almost a quarter of an inch out of round. And nobody would be good with that. But the thing to remember is these are maximum tolerances. And to get your tire assembly that far out of round, you would need to assemble each of the components at their worst possible out of round spot. So we call this stacking of tolerances. And it's something a good tire technician and mechanic are already aware of. So how the parts are assembled can make a big difference on how much out of round you end up with.
And then I guess with that in mind too, how much out of round, as you put it there, is an acceptable number?
That's a great question. And I'm going to give you a two-part answer to it. So basically, one is the tolerance and the other is best practice. The industry is fully aware that out of round or run out, as it's referred to, is directly linked to the ride quality of your truck, especially in the steer position. The Technical Maintenance Council has established a tolerance of 0.80 thousandths of an inch, or 0.080, for 22.5 and 24.5 inch tires mounted in steer position. So at Michelin, our field engineers are train end users to support this tolerance, but we also know that the smaller the number, the better performance and ride quality. So we promote the best practice of 60 thousandths of an inch, 0.060. And that means the mismount, wheel, tire, hub-to-wheel clearance, and hub itself all should add up to less than 60 thousandths of an inch to optimize the ride.
Right. So we take all that information into account here. Obviously, these tires are out there in real-world applications. Sounds pretty difficult to keep it in that frame there that you're referencing. What should people out there be doing to measure and maintain this best practice? I think you mentioned 0.060 inch right there. What do they need to do?
60 thousandths of an inch. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the main thing is to have the right tools. So a radial runout gauge is a good tool to have. That consists of a dial indicator, a roller wheel, and a magnetic adjustable base that you can attach to a brake drum or a wheel laying on the floor for stability. And this type of setup can be purchased for, under $100 or so. Commercial versions can cost up to about $400. But there are videos available on our website and on YouTube and online that can help explain how to do the measurements for them.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, and that's obviously where you start here. But you get that gauge that you mentioned there. It allows people out there to measure, but it doesn't, I don't think, and you'll correct me here if I'm wrong, but it doesn't explain the best way to get all those parts to add up to that number that you referenced there.
That's right. So let's start with the biggest contributors to radial runout. First and foremost, we need a good wheel and tire. So as you can see from the tolerances we talked about, an aluminum wheel has a better chance of being low for radial runout. Having said that, aluminum wheels may not be ideal in harsh environments, and steel might be a better choice. But either way you go, you want to pick a wheel with low radial and lateral runout for your steer position to start with. And the steer position, remember, is the most likely position to cause a ride disturbance that the driver will feel. After all, it's the closest to the driver. And as far as the tire, the major manufacturers who supply to OE truck builders typically have to maintain strict runout tolerances because the OE market demands it. So with a good wheel and tire, now we need to join them together, which is the step everyone takes for granted. The wheel must be clean in the seating surface, otherwise the rubber and old lubricant builds up and it adds to the out-of-round or run-out condition. And then you've got to use the proper amount of consistency of lubricant. So this should be a vegetable-based lubricant, so it doesn't degrade the rubber like lubricants which contain petroleum products. But it should be applied to the tire and the wheel. And that lubricant's critical to making it easier to mount, but more importantly, to ensuring the tire and the wheel will actually seat concentrically.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're following those steps. We're where you are as you were talking about there. Got your tire mounted on the wheel. That is not the end of the story here, though, right? There are other steps, including one important one that you've got to take.
Certainly not the end of the story. No, exactly. And so we need to make sure the tire is properly inflated. We want to inflate the tire while the lubricant is still viscous before it dries out. Otherwise, it won't allow the proper centering of the tire onto the rim. So another step that the techs are not always aware of is to make sure the tire and wheel assembly are horizontal when seating the bead. If the tire's up against a wall when you inflate it, you're fighting gravity to lift and center the wheel. By lying it horizontal or supporting it on a 5-gallon bucket, the beads can be relaxed and can seat properly. And you've got gravity centering that tire onto the rim. Now, I know some people are going to say, wait, you can't do that because the wheel assembly is not in a safety cage. Well, it's actually the industry procedures allow for mounting a tire to be out of a restraining device for the first 5 psi in order to facilitate centering of the wheel to the tire. So 5 psi is perfectly fine outside of the cage. Once the initial seeding of the beads are complete, then you cap it and roll it into a cage. You can now inflate it to the recommended pressure. For truck tires, it's not necessary to overinflate and deflate to the pressure you operate at. Just make sure your operating pressure is sufficient for the load you're carrying.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, we're following this process kind of down the list here as you're walking us through it. Our tires concentrically mounted on the rim now. What comes next after that?
So the next step is to put your radial runout gauge to work. Use that radial runout gauge. And I'll give you a simple rule I call the 30-60-90 rule. So once you take your radial runout gauge, you measure the runout on that wheel assembly. If your reading is less than 30 thousandths of an inch, that's outstanding. That'll maximize the ride and handling. If you're between 30 and 60 thousandths of an inch, that's within the target range we're looking for. So most of our readings would fall in that area if we do the steps we just discussed. It should all fall into the 30 to 60,000 range. From 60 to 90,000, that's the range where you can start to see mismount situations occurring most often. So if you fall into that range, if you're certainly if you're outside of 80 thousandths of an inch, then I recommend you do the 3 R's, and that's break down the tire, relubricate, rotate it 180 degrees, and reinflate it with the tire horizontal again. So remember, anything that's greater than 90 thousandths of an inch means you likely have a component problem, such as like an out-of-round wheel or hub or something in that respect. So there is an issue there if you're over 90 thousandths of an inch. So just remember, if you're troubleshooting a vibration, radial runout or out of round is usually the culprit. Lateral runout usually leads to irregular wear because it's got a strong influence on toe measurement for alignment. But keep your out of round under 60 thousandths of an inch, and you'll definitely get a great ride and good performance out of those steer tires throughout their life.
Great advice, Andy. Great information for everybody out there to keep in mind when it comes to getting the most out of our steer tires. You mentioned it briefly there, but I want to make sure that we mention it again for anybody who might have missed it, where people can and I guess should go if they want more information like this, and you've got a lot of it out there. Where should they go?
There are a lot of different resources that you can go to. The Tire Industry Association is typically one. You can go to our Michelin website online, MichelinTruck.com, or you can even Google it online and pull that information up through YouTube. There's certainly a lot of videos out there that do a great job of explaining the process and the tools required. So there are a lot of resources out there. Remember, this isn't just specific to Michelin tires. This is with respect to all commercial truck tires and rotating wheel assemblies. So certainly lots of information out there. There's no lack of it, no lack of availability as far as resources to help you in determining how much runouts you've got.
Absolutely. Andy, great stuff. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Our thanks once again to Andy McCulloch of Michelin. Looking forward to speaking with him again in the near future. And in the meantime, you can check out those resources he mentioned, including that Michelin YouTube page, which has a lot of great informational videos in multiple languages covering a number of topics. We've got to hit the brakes here for a moment and take a quick break, but stick around because there's more Landline Now right around the corner. We'll see you on the other side.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now. Welcome back. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has announced what setting it will call for on speed limiters in an upcoming regulation. Here to discuss that and more is OOIDA Public Relations Director Narita Taylor. Narita, thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to join you, Mark.
So the key question I think everybody is asking is, what is the number?
What is the number? The number is 68. 68 miles per hour is the setting that will be proposed by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
And this is kind of what we expected to an extent, isn't it, from them?
It's not surprising, although, if you were to ask me 12 hours ago, 24 hours ago, last week, I still would have had no idea exactly what. We knew that they had tossed around a couple of different 60-mile-an-hour-ish numbers in the past, but now we know for sure.
Where did they make this announcement?
So they made this announcement as part of a significant rulemaking report, which came out just a few hours ago today. And on it, there were several other agencies and updates, things that are going on with other agencies not related to trucking. And within there was a paragraph stating that the FMCSA does intend to come out with a supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking December the 29th, 2023.
So how many comments did FMCSA receive in regard to its most recent speed limiter notice? Because this is one of the things that's kind of perplexing about this.
Yes, it is. It is confusing. So yes, that particular notice, there were 15,000 comments filed, almost all in the negative, almost all against any idea of a proposed speed limiter mandate. Yes.
Well, and it's kind of odd in the fact that FMCSA is supposed to consider those comments when it moves forward in the regulatory process, and it sounds like they just didn't.
Mark, yes, you basically said exactly what happened is they basically didn't, or at the very least, or most, they didn't even acknowledge it or explain why. I think that's something that they do need to explain.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about OOIDA's position on this, because obviously this is a brand new notice. We don't know much about this one beyond what was in that list of significant rulemakings that are upcoming. But OOIDA has had a pretty clear position overall on speed limiters over time. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So it's not news to everyone listening that we as an association oppose a speed limiter mandate, whether it's 68 or 65 or 62, whatever it is. What we think should actually happen is that states should be able to set the speed limits as they see fit according to the studies and research that they do, and let them decide what would be safest for those areas, rather than basically forcing a national speed limit on all trucks over 26,000 pounds that haul interstate commerce.
Because we've been there before and it didn't work out.
We've been there before. It didn't work out. The premise is this: highways are safest when all vehicles travel at the same relative speed. Nothing has changed in physics since we all took driver's ed decades ago. It's still the same. Physics are still the same. We want everyone to avoid colliding with each other. And if we have some vehicles going a significant speed less or more than others, that's when you increase the likelihood of interactions, thus increase the likelihood of crashes.
So I'm sure a lot of truckers are asking what they can do at this point. Is there anything truckers can do to prepare for this upcoming proposed rulemaking?
Yes, so there's a couple of things. With the rulemaking itself, you'll want to be prepared to file comments. I know we've done this before, and you've done it before. We thank everyone for continuing to file those comments. We have to keep doing it. Please keep doing it. It also doesn't hurt to be reaching out to your lawmakers to let them know about these issues and how they affect you as a business and how they affect highway safety. Another thing that wouldn't be a bad idea is, if you've got a dash cam videos of trucks in front of you that are speed limited, that are clogging up traffic and causing problems, it wouldn't be a bad idea to start collecting those and tagging us on social media, sending those in. That would not be a bad idea as well.
that's something that can demonstrate to lawmakers and to FMCSA the problem here.
It's a visual representation. People don't understand until you explain to them, okay, when you're on the highway and you're behind two trucks and one's in the right lane going about 62 and the other one's in the left lane going about 64, 65. The reason for that is because they are both speed limited and you can't get around them until they get around each other.
Of course, now they'd be going the same speed. One assumes.
Yeah, unless they are also speed limited at 62 as well. It's just kind of crazy the way no one wants to listen to the basic physics that we've all learned long ago about highway safety, which is having vehicles travel at the same relative speed.
Now, as far as filing comments, that's something that we can't really do at this point, right? We're waiting until this supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking comes out.
That's correct. And we'll have more information on that. Jay Grimes, our director of Federal Affairs, he'll probably have a better update at some point. This was brand new, just out of the gate this morning, and so hopefully we'll have some more information as we go along.
Last weekend, this most previous weekend, you were down at the Guilty by Association Truck Show talking with a lot of truckers down there. Did this come up much?
It did. Speed limiters came up, as well as EPA regulations and their concerns about that. Lots of concerns about broker issues and all kinds of things going on. But definitely speed limiters is a top issue for our members and truck drivers.
What was the overall tone of truckers down there at the show?
It was overall positive because, it's a great show. It's a great event. Everyone looks forward to it. It's a great atmosphere. Lots of popular trucks, lots of great-looking trucks, polished, ready to go, ready to show off. Lots of fun events for a very family atmosphere. Lots of reunions, if you will, meeting up with each other. It's just a really overall positive atmosphere.
Despite the weather this past weekend.
Despite the weather. It was off and on. It was raining, and then it was shining, and then it was hot, and then it was raining again. So, yes, there was lots of ups and downs with the weather, but despite that, it was a great event.
And I guess there was a little bit of media coverage there. Todd spoke with YouTube personality, Mother Trucker.
Yes, he did. Talked about all the things that I just mentioned, all the things that are going on here, encouraging people to join. We really like Alex Mai a lot. The actual, his name is Alex, the host of that show, YouTube. And talking about all the things that are going on, just really kind of fun to be in person rather than just on a monitor screen, or on a telephone screen, if you will.
The board was also there, the board of directors. And I'm wondering, did they share any of their wisdom in particular during the big trucking event?
Oh, absolutely. So, yes, OOIDA had its board of directors fall meeting while we were down there so that we could have them all in one place for two reasons, to get our fall meeting underway and also have them have a presence at the GBATS show. And yes, they definitely are always full of wisdom about just about anything, whether it's trucking or otherwise. Just all kinds of fun conversations, sharing their insights on what they see on the road, which is what we count on them to do in order to set policies and conversations and narratives from the association.
Okay. Well, narrator, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for the information, and obviously we'll bring people more as soon as it becomes available on the speed limiter topic.
There will be lots more to come. Thank you so much, Mark.
I've been talking with OOIDA's Public Relations Director, Narita Taylor, about a notice that came out today on speed limiters. And folks, obviously, you can't comment on this yet. It's not coming out officially until December. However, you can call your lawmakers and talk about this. There is a bill in Congress right now that would stop this in its tracks. If you want to make your voice heard on that or any of the issues that we discuss here on the show, you should call your member of Congress. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am
a
professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.